Oh yes, I mean, yeah. It's all, you almost look at it and go, that was the first chapter.
Yeah.
And this is a multi-decade thing. Like when you're a mission-driven business,
Yep.
you can't think about things in aliquots of 1 year or 6 months. We think about this as a multi-decade project.
Yep. Yep.
That's what it is. Because our mission is to become the world's partner for surgical training. What does that mean? That means that if you are a patient anywhere in the world and you are having an operation, you should be, when we've achieved our mission, you should be able to turn around to the surgeon and say, what did you learn how to do this surgery on? And they will say, we learned it on the Inovus platforms.
Yep.
And I had to do this many of these procedures before I touched a patient, and I had to do them to this standard.
Yes.
That's what drives us forward as a business. And just so, in case anyone's wondering, like, what on earth do you actually do, because you haven't said it, we make simulators for teaching surgeons how to operate. So they're for laparoscopic surgery, hysteroscopy, and a growing portfolio. So they allow the surgeons to practice in hyper-realistic environments away from the patient bedside,
Yep.
which is not the traditional approach that we were using.
Yeah, and just so you guys don't, if you don't know this, right? Because in America, and like just from my experience, a lot of times there's residents who will go practice on a person they've actually never done the procedure. Yeah. They've read about it, but now you're getting that's being done. And so the mission is everybody who's going to go and perform those procedures already feel confident when they're going in and performing those procedures on those patients. And so that's our goal, and that's why I get I'm so proud to be a part of this. Is like the vision is not only just to impact the surgeons, but impacting millions and hundreds of millions of lives every single year. And like right now, I saw 5.6.
Yeah, we just so an example of this, like where are we in that adoption curve, and sort of 10 years of work. And actually this, I want to touch on, because you said it earlier, what do Inovus look for when we're hiring?
Yeah.
And there are certain things that have been forged in the fires of building a business from two lads with no money out of a bedroom to 10, and in a medtech business, that's not easy.
Yeah.
And there's certain things that have been forged in those fires that have become the core values that we look for, which I'll touch on. But as you say, just this last week, we've just done an adoption in a whole region in the UK where every surgeon in that region will be utilising our platforms to learn how to operate, and they'll be taking care of 5.6 million patients. So that's 5.6 million patients. Yes, not all 5.6 million are having surgery every day. But any one of those 5.6 million that will get an operation by the gynecologist or the general surgeons, their surgeon will have got to a standard in the simulated environment before they moved on. And they're also constantly training, because this is the other thing. Yep. The sporting analogies just really help with what we do as 100%. A business. Well, I'll use my favourite sport, of course, tennis. Roger Federer did not win Wimbledon in the first year that he won it, 2003, if I recall rightly, and then didn't go and practice between then and the next Wimbledon and the next Wimbledon and the next Wimbledon. He gained the absolute pinnacle of his sport. He achieved his level that is like, you're pretty good at this, and then he carried on training, and that's what we advocate, which is not only should you be getting that level of safety. So I've achieved this level of skill as a surgeon. We've benchmarked you to say, you're safe. Now you can go and keep the learning curve going on with the patients, but the learning curve, the baseline is so much higher, so it reduces risk. But then it's, even while you're doing that, you should still be coming back to the simulated environment, because Roger then wouldn't have gone and learned all of his skills just in tournaments. He'd be on the practice court, and that's what we do as a business to 100%. Say that's how we should be training. Yeah.
It's like the reason I just say this, guys, is because like that's when you hear that many lives are going to be impacted, and then also know that you're giving the best possible training. That you have to have something that you believe in, and I just wanted to touch on that. Like why I'm with Inovus, why I believe so strongly with this mission is, we see it happening. I've seen all the hard work, and then we don't have enough time. But if you could just hear half the stories that these guys have gone through to put this business where it's at, like you'd be jumping on the ship as well. So I go. But again, the reason we're just talking about breaking in, you guys, it doesn't matter what industry, what you're doing. There's certain lessons that you have to have that are going to keep pushing you into those. And so again, I know you had a couple more different stories of
more breaking in. Yeah. I mean, so there's two I want to touch on. So thinking about my own career and where we are now.
Yep.
So decent tennis player, kid, didn't know what he was really doing when it came to medical school, took the coaching, broke and did all those things to prep to break it, and got 4 offers for 4 of the higher level medical schools in the UK because I over prepared. And we're going to talk about that one in a moment. But then the other breaking in stories, once you get into medical school, then it's like, okay, where am I going to match for my residency or foundation programs in the UK? It's the internship in the US. And that's not a foregone conclusion. In the UK, it's a national selection program. So you can finish medical school and you can be sent anywhere, but you can rank your preferences. Mm-hmm. So this comes back to breaking into the right place and thinking about where your career is going as a surgeon or a medic. And I looked at it and said, well, okay, when I finish with medical school, I want to go to the best program in the whole country. Yeah. I want to go and select the hardest, most challenging one, because I want to come out of the first 2 years of being a junior doctor in the UK. I want to come out of that having experienced the hardest possible environment so that I can be the best possible clinician for patient care. Yep. But those programs, this is the John Radcliffe in Oxford, one of the most prestigious programs in the whole world. Yep. And I looked at that and said, that's where I want to go. And I just restarted the whole process. Okay, what do I need when it comes to applying for those jobs? Yep. Well, you need to be sitting in the top 25% in your class at medical school. Yep. You need to have won some prizes. You need to have put publications together. You need to have, they have this application process where you sit a postgraduate exam, you answer all these other questions. You need to be in like the top 10% for that, but like as an absolute minimum alongside all these other things. And I just went back through that process of over preparing and making sure I had that no stone unturned. And I ranked high enough to basically pick any job within that program that I wanted. So it was a really nice time for me. But again, the lesson here is it wasn't a foregone conclusion just because I'd gone to a decent medical school that I would get that role. There were people in my medical schools that were getting shipped off to all sorts of parts of the country because they hadn't done all of these things. They'd been really, really good academically, but they hadn't done these other things to stand them out. Yeah. So that's another piece of how do you break into something difficult? That was almost harder to get that role than it was to get into medical school. It was incredibly difficult. Yeah. And then the other breaking in one I just want to talk about again is raising venture capital. Yeah, yeah. So this is a very exciting part to it. Like, remember, 2 guys, 22 in a dorm room putting together to now. Yeah. Venture capital. And I mean, I've got hundreds of breaking in stories I mean, you could, every time we make a sale into the NHS or any health system, I feel that's breaking in. Yep. And it's exactly the same process. Yep. Like, just don't have any chinks in the armor. Do everything, over prepare, can't say enough. And we've talked about this too, is like, but if you have a goal, right? How do you know how to accomplish that goal? Well, know the goal, work it backwards on what you would have to do to physically get to achieve that goal. Yeah. And then do everything in your power to do that plus more. Yeah. And here's the final, the other breaking story, breaking into venture capital. Less than 1% of businesses, all businesses ever on the planet, raise institutional investments or raise venture capital. It is incredibly difficult. Mm-hmm. How do you do it? You go and you say, I'm going to do my research. I'm going to go and resource investigate what VCs want and need. That's finding books. That's finding audio books. That's speaking to people that have raised capital before. That's speaking to friendly VCs who would tell you what they maybe want to hear. That's speaking to bankers. That's speaking to corporate finance experts. That's just the research piece. Yep. Then it's preparing. It's not just preparing a shiny pitch deck that sounds good. When we went out to VC, the first time we did it, we've raised 2 rounds of venture capital now. When we went out to VC, we put our pitch deck together, but sitting underneath that was a 22,000 word business plan. And the VCs won't they tend to not read those because it's so they see so many business plans and so many decks, they won't read it. Yep. But my opinion was, well, the pitch deck's just an introduction as to what we're doing. It's not the plan. Yep. We have to have a plan, and we have to be able to point to that plan as we go once the money comes in. So we wrote this 22,000 word business plan, and we, in our first round of venture capital, we not only had the deck, the plan, we trained and we rehearsed our pitch. So I could stand up and do the pitch, standing on my head on a merry-go-round, and still be able to deliver it exactly how I would do it any other time, so that there wasn't a single detail that was missed when delivering that pitch, because you've only got a certain amount of time to capture the intention of these very busy and very, very intelligent people. Yep. And that level of over-preparing, I think the important thing to note here is once you've achieved it, don't then stop. So when you bring venture capital in, you've achieved this milestone in the business of bringing venture capital investment into your business. Well, the important thing now is that you actually deliver on the plan. Yeah. And so when we look at that, I don't really look at our pitch deck. What I look at is the business plan.
Yep.
And I go through and I look through that and I say, well, here's our milestones. Like, this is where we're at. We're either ahead of plan here, behind plan here. Yep. And we're constantly referring back to that and constantly checking ourselves and making sure, we're not resting on our laurels. We got this money, we can just sit back and relax. No, we need to put that money to work now. Yep. So it's just another example of same process, different part of industry, different part of business or life. So breaking into medical school, breaking into work life, in this case residency programs, or breaking into venture capital. For me, we just keep deploying the same thing. It seems to work.
It's going good so far. We keep going. Now the thing is, you guys, first off, I know you're just loving hearing the accent, because it's why we like to enjoy to talk, but we're gonna really get into it right now. Is like everything up to this point, if you just go back and listen to, and you use what Elliot's saying, I promise you, your interviews will be 1,000 times better, because because I can just be straight up with you guys. This is real, right? Most of you guys are lazy, all right? That's most people calling me are the people who listen to one podcast and they're like, okay, it's time to reach out. Know nothing about my background, and they don't even know where I work, what I do, any of that. It's just doing stuff like that to help you guys get to the point. But what I know is going to bring the value and why you guys are listening is talking to a CEO and asking, when you're interviewing all these people, you're doing the hiring, what are you looking for in your reps? What are you looking for in the people that you're hiring?
Yeah, I'll address the audience directly on this one. And I mentioned about it, and I signposted this earlier. Signposting is another thing, by the way. If you think about communication skills, if you can get good at, and this is a transferable skill from, complete aside, by the way, this is a transferable skill from medical school. Signposting is a thing about when we're taking histories from patients. When people say something and you're like, you've said something there, and you want to tell me more, but you're not telling me more because I need to do a good job of getting out of you. I'm going to signpost. So I'm going to say, I hear what you're saying here. We're going to come back to that later. Okay, signposting in interviews is like an incredibly powerful thing. Just want to touch on that. But I signposted to you earlier about our core values, which are the things we look for when we're hiring, and we're very clear about them. They were forged in the fire of building this business, and they're also the things that we've reflected on for myself and Jordan. Bear in mind, I've got an equal partner. Like, we would not be sitting here without Jordan. Yeah. Absolutely not. But he has these exact same things that have made him successful in rugby, in breaking into being a chief technology officer in a business where he has to do hardware and software. It's incredibly difficult. So here they are. These are the three things. And it makes it really easy for us when we're hiring. We look for attitude, excellence, and ethic. And I'm going to talk to you about what those three things mean for us as a business. When it comes to attitude, it's all about, am I actually a nice human being? Am I someone that people want to engage with and spend their time around? And when I talk about attitude and then talk about excellence, they're almost juxtaposed. They're pushing against one another, because, and I'm going to come back to attitude and give a bit more detail on it in a moment. But when we think about excellence, this is, I am holding myself to the highest possible standards. So let's use an analogy. When we're thinking about an exam, you can prepare for the exam, you can revise for that exam, you can get prepped for it. And you may prep enough such that if the exam comes along and you have the best day ever, you'll get like 80% in the exam. But if you have a bad day, you'll get 50. The way I've always prepped for exams, and this comes back to being humble enough to do this, is I've revised so heavily and prepared so deeply that I want to know that if I had 100 questions and I had the best possible day, I could get all 100 right. Not because I'm particularly intelligent, but because I've prepared so heavily and I've held myself to such high standards of preparation. I get all 100 right. If they then ask me another 100, I'd get all of those right on a good day, and the next 100 I'd get right. So you could get like 300%. But what that means then, and this is the analogy here for excellence, if you're holding yourself to such high standards and then you have an off day, which we all do, you could turn up to the interview where you had to fly and it's like 3 hours time zone different. You flew in the morning, or you got there last night, bad bed, terrible night's sleep, didn't get coffee, Uber was running late, you get there flustered, and you've prepared so heavily that then you're like, I'm going to have a terrible day here, but I prepared to like what I call 150%. You've had a terrible day, you got 80, you're still going to be better than pretty much everyone else in the interview. That is very, very different to our attitude piece, which is, when I'm describing that level of excellence and ability, you'd expect people to be, those people are going to be very cocky, self-assured, have big egos, because you must be if you're that good. If you're able to prepare that well and then perform to that standard, you're obviously going to be like, but you can have that level of excellence. If you're not a nice person that's friendly and engaging, people aren't going to want to spend their time with you. In business, we spend all our time together. We spend loads of time with our customers and our colleagues. So the attitude piece, be a lovely person. I've got a different way of describing it offline, which I won't put on the podcast here, but hopefully it's coming through what I mean by this. So we've done attitude, we've spoken about excellence. Doesn't matter if you're the nicest person in the world who is just incredibly talented, who prepares really, really, really well, that really is gifted. If you're not going to then work, and this is our final one, ethic. If you're not going to work, it does not matter. It's a three-legged stool. It's like this lamp over the shoulder here. If one of those legs falls off, the whole thing's going to fall down. And an ethic, a work ethic, is so important. Potentially it's the foundation for those three, because if you don't have it, then you may as well throw the other two in the bin. And then that's what we look for. That's us at Inovus, because we as a founding partnership and as a group, we look at it and go, what do we think has made us successful? And there's certainly bigger businesses that have grown quicker than us, but the things that we've done so far, we like to think, okay, we're relatively successful there. We've reflected on that, looked inside and said, what do we think allowed us to do that and be successful? And those are the three values that for us, every day I get out of bed, those are the three things that I'm thinking about for me personally. And so we're bringing people into the team and into the family. That's what we want to see. And then we're constantly testing those. I said earlier, there's constantly tests in our hiring process, and there will be for every other medtech company on the planet. There's going to be constant tests, and we're constantly using different techniques and questions and things to test out: is this person a nice person? Have they got a good soul, effectively? Are they brilliant? And do they hold themselves to these high standards? And are they willing to work like really hard? And by the end of our process, we'll know whether or not that's true or not for all three of them.
I love it. You guys, I have no word. Just go back and listen to that, because we've talked about this, and this is why I'm here. But again, talking about our work ethic and just everything with your attitude, like we've talked about, they want to buy from people they like, but they want to be around people they like, right? Nobody likes the jerk. We all know them. But also just working harder. That's the conversation. The piece. The reason I'm going into detail on this is because me and Elliot have talked about this. We just talked about it last night. If everything got taken away from us, we'd go back to doing what we had to put food on the table. And also why every day's so great is, I was doing landscaping, making $12 an hour, doing manual labor for 10 to 12 hours a day. And now, even when I moved out, people would see me in Arizona. I'm making $500 a week teaching jumping jacks, and they're like, how are you so happy? I'm like, it's sunny and it's beautiful weather, and I'm not digging a 6-foot hole. And I know we talked about this, there was other situations we could have been in. So now every day is just the dream. And
I think that's a really important message for you guys breaking in, because you're getting some great content here. There's a great guy coaching you in. When you do get in, you have to remember this, and it comes back to that humble piece. You're not preordained to be a med device sales manager that's earning 6 figures. I'm not preordained to have been a surgeon or be the co-founder of a business. That's just luck. That was literally a series of events that happened in the right order for me to be in that position. And so I'm well aware that could all just fall apart. And worst case scenario, going back to be a tennis coach, or I'd go and work on a farm. Exactly. But what I'm doing right now, flying to LA and spending a week on the West Coast, is that really exciting and fun compared to those other alternatives? The answer is yes. So enjoy that while you're doing it, but respect the position that you're 100%. In. And then when you do I think it's important about the breaking in pieces once you're in, because you're helping people get into the industry. But we talk about because again, people in my course, I just had a call about this. I don't get people just to get in and be average. If that, I don't work with them because it's very select. We're in here, you're the top of your top. We only work with high performers, and we're not here just to make 150, 200K, do the bare minimum. We're here to be on the top. And so being in. So once you're in and you're there and you're like, this is tough. Like the 3 things that Elliot's spoken about, like attitude, excellence, but then ethic, that especially ethic and excellence, the big med techs are going to be expecting that, and they're expecting me to be grinding it out.
Yep.
But and then you may start after 1 or 2 years. People often get comfortable. As humans, we've got very short memories. We all have, and so very quickly we've forgotten, well, what was it like before I was here?
Yeah.
And now my new normal is I'm frustrated by the fact that I'm having to spend 3 or 4 hours in the car, or that I'm standing in theatre doing X, Y, and Z. But I want people to always think about, once you have broken in, you're doing those things, and you've been intentional about it, think about, what was the alternative for me? Yeah. And that will make you really value your day to day, because then you can be in a position where, like, this is a tough day, like this is hard. I've been shouted at a few times, like we've got stuff on back order, stuff is going wrong, but ultimately you can look at that and go, is this still a better outcome than my alternative was? And if the answer is yes, then that should allow you to put a smile on your face and carry on enjoying it.
And that's such a great point, because I say this to people all the time. Like, for me, it's what I do in my own life and reflect on it. If I'm having a problem, having a bad day, you can just change it with your attitude. Is it really that big of a problem? But 2, I used to pray and hope for this. When I was trying to break in, I was a personal trainer and I wanted to break into medical device sales. I could have a bad day, but I was hoping to be in this position. Yeah. And now I'm here, right? And like you said, the memory can go by real fast. And so it's like you can go back to where you were. So it's if you just keep reflecting, like, this is what I asked for, like, and that's why I tell with everybody, with whatever they do with work, with my family and whoever it is, if they're complaining, I'm like, you chose that. This is you, you know, like, and if it's not you anymore, okay, maybe it's not, but like, for you, that's why you should love it. And so, yeah, we could go all day about this, but just understanding, like, and we've said this, when you get into medical device sales and you get into med tech and you're doing this, especially with a startup and just anything in medical device sales, this is not a walk through the park where you're just working 2 hours a day, chilling in your bed, watching TV. Like, that is not this position. And that's why we just always make it very clear that if you want to go and you want to be successful, you're going to have to work. And guess what? There might be someone more talented. There might be someone who has better connections. But guess what? If you can just come in, be humble, be coachable, be ready to work, and be willing to do whatever it takes to be successful, I promise you'll probably get some traction. And that's what I just want to always make sure to get to you guys, is you have the opportunity to do it. It's just, are you willing to put in the effort? Are you willing to be coachable? Are you willing to make yourself uncomfortable in positions? Because to get where you want to go, you have to be, and here, I'll end with this quote. To be what you want to be, you have to do stuff you've never done before. And if you want to be something great, well, you're not great right now. You got to do things. Going back to the coaching of going back to sports, they talk about it. How you prepare as a college athlete and how you prepare as a pro is 2 different ways.
Absolutely.
And if you're a pro and you want to be a top pro, there's levels to this game.
Yeah, my piece, just to add to that, my final piece is you've got to get comfortable being uncomfortable.
Yeah. Yep.
Like, it's like you've got to enjoy the hurt, as it were. Jordan, my co-founder, he's also a very good Ironman and triathlete, and he loves that. Yep. I find it from different. I prefer it in the work side of things rather than running for 500 miles. But you've got to get comfortable being uncomfortable, and that's when you're going to be able to make a change.
Yep, and that's when you'll grow. But Elliot, I just want to say again, thank you so much for joining us today, being able to talk to these guys. And you guys, I know you enjoyed it, but again, just appreciate you guys listening and hearing a true expert and somebody who's not only lives it every single day, but has lived it for the last 10 years of being a college student. But even before that, being in tennis, and then like, hey, I want to go to med school. And again, it's way different, way more competitive. And when he gets in, what he's been able to accomplish. And again, the reason I just say this to you guys and why I'm so fortunate and so glad to be here is like to have a true leader, because again, people can say they work hard, people can do it, but when you can physically see somebody answering back 400 emails in a day and literally traveling and doing the stuff, that's what like will get you. So make sure whoever you guys are going with and make you better too, because it's got to be a family. It's got, like we said, and that's what I love about being here. It is a family. I have everyone's number. We can text, we chat, we joke around, and like you said, real quick, I just have to touch about this part is like, in our interviews, like I didn't even feel like at the very end that it was an interview, for the fact of it just felt so natural. It felt so like it was so easy, and that's when I knew. I remember calling my mom afterwards and being like, I just am glad to have this opportunity. It was so much of such a joy to be here. But to know that I have the opportunity to be with a founder and people that believe and work this hard it's motivating. So again, just want to say thank you to you and also this opportunity.
Pleasure. Thanks for having me, Jacob, and thanks for joining the team.
Glad to be here. And if you guys are watching, press that like and subscribe button. Helps us grow the channel. If you guys are listening, a 5-star review helps us grow this podcast and reach even more people. And if you guys are interested in joining the course or learning more about the course, again, you guys can feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn. The link is also in the description. You guys can reach out to me on Instagram as well, New to Medical Device Sales, where we're all at. But again, I just truly appreciate your support. Like always, we will have a great week. Go after your goals, and we'll see you on the next one. Peace.